always have did what he said he would do. Doesn't matter what time he said he would do it, that he would do it. And I've said before, 10 years, God has brought ministers after 10 years. And he has brought Sister Val and Brother Evenson into the ministry. But I got word the other day that there was another one. And he called me and we talked for over an hour. And this is what God told him, that he would, God has caused him to go into the ministry. So of course, the job is to ask the hard questions. Was it God or is it you? And once they have said that it is God that has called them into certain areas, it's between that person and God. All we do is relay work. Brother Deanie Winfrey God has told him to go into the ministry, and I asked specifically what ministry. And he said, the ministry of being here, this particular ministry. So I asked the question again, are you sure? And he said, yes. Amen. So we want to welcome Brother Winfrey into the ministry. And of course, there's work to be done when he comes into it. And it's between him and God and a little bit of me, of guidance. That's all through Christ. So we're going to have him come and sit with us today. Amen. Amen. We don't want to forget what comes along with him is his wife, Marissa. We don't hold no position right with God. You may be seated. There may be more, and God has made room for more. You ever got some news that you just couldn't bear? And you got some news that you could bear. Got some news that it was happy and it done well with your spirit. But every now and then we get some news that is not well with us at all. And the news have to travel to get to you. In some kind of way, there's some news that is traveling to get to you. Some of it is good and some of it is bad. But for any reason, it is to make you better. Why would God send some news to make you bad? Or to make you worse? Why would he do that? I found it, we're not going to be here, but I found a place where some news came that you gave the news, but you didn't get out the jail. You didn't get out your mess. But you released somebody else out of it. We find these particular two people in the book of Genesis. Don't turn. If you want to, you can, but we're not going to be there. I just have to go there for a minute. In Genesis 40, it talks about Joseph and how, 39 and 40, and how he was innocent in what he done. You ever been falsely accused? Oh, I'm talking to myself. I've been falsely accused. Yes. Been falsely accused where you know you didn't do it. You know you probably was there, but you didn't do it. So in the book of Genesis of 39 and 40, you have to go read it for yourself. There was this lady that wanted to, the king's wife, that wanted to be with Joseph. And she kind of trapped him to come to her chambers. And at the same time, Joseph has said, no, I won't. And he ends up in her chambers anyway. So he runs, and she grabs a part of his garment, and it tears. And she put it beside her and called the guards and said, he's been here. And the king locks him up. Falsely accused. Did not do it, but falsely accused. So he gets locked up. And in chapter 40, we see a baker and a butler who have done something to offend the king. And the king puts them in prison. And Joseph speaks to them. And the men wanted Joseph to interpret a dream. Joseph did. And when he interpreted, he said, remember me when you go to the king. Remember that I'm down here. And could you put a good word in? Anybody has asked for a good word and you didn't get it? So he asked this of the butler and the baker. And neither one of them gave a good word. But he did tell the interpretation. He told it the interpretation, for one, that you will be released, which is the butler. And you'll end up back to your job in the king's house. The baker, he said, you will hang from a tree and you will die. You see, when it's always time to interpretate something, and some of us have the interpretation, the tongue of interpretation. I have to interpretate when it's bad and when it's good. I can't just have interpretation is bad. It's good. I need interpretation when it's bad too. When it's time to say the bad things of interpretation, I need to speak that also. So the baker and the butler listened, and they went to the king. And the butler didn't make it. So somehow, the butler said exactly what the interpretation was, but he didn't get out. But the baker got out. Two significant parts up in the king's house. What part do you play in the king's house? In the master's house? Am I selfish in the master's house? Am I stingy in the master's house? Do I not use common sense in the master's house? Do I have my own ways in the master's house? Or do I am obedient to God? And I speak for God. And I live for God. Now we can go to the service. In the book of Nehemiah, and also in the book of Ezekiel, I'm learning to be patient with the pages. used to not be. When I hear the pages, I'm learning to be patient because I'm already there. That doesn't mean you're yours. Nehemiah had got some news that wasn't too good. And he said in chapter 1, in verse 2, that how one of my brethren came, he and certain men of Judah, and asked them concerning the Jews that had escaped, which were left of the captivity, and concerning Jerusalem. And they said unto me, the remnant that are left on the captivity, there in the province are great affliction and reproach. The walls of Jerusalem also is broken down, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. And it came to pass, when I heard these words, that I sat down and wept and moaned certain days, and fasted, and prayed before the God of heaven, and said, I beseech thee, O God of heaven, thou great and terrible God, that keepeth covenant and mercy for them that love him, and observe his commandments, that thou ear now be attentive, and then thou eyes open, that thou may hear the prayer of thy servant, which I pray before thee, day and night, for the children of Israel, thou servest, and confess the sins of thy children in Israel, which we have sinned against thee, both I and my father's house have sinned. If I had a text this morning, I got some news. You may be seated. I got some news. There's news that you are not prepared for to have. There's news that come from afar off that seems to be damaging to us, and it almost like paralyzes us because we get some news that is not good. But I have to understand that when he got the news from his friends and how they had spoken to him about everything that was going on in his hometown, where he was from, his family was there. When you get some news about your family, it's kind of different than getting some news about a lost friend. It kind of does something to you when your family's in trouble. It kind of does something to you when your family is in need and you can't do nothing. Because I have to understand about Nehemiah, he was in a place that was in a comfort. He was the king's cupbearer. He served the king all the time. He knew the king. And the king asked him one day, he said, why are you sad today? Why is your conscience so sad? You've never been before me sad. You always had a cheerful heart. You always had lived and always enjoyed life. Have I done something? There's something go on. And before he answered him, he went and prayed to God. That's the first thing, is to pray to God before we do anything. Then I can go to the king as he did, and he tells him the story about what happened. I have nothing. I don't even know how to get there. I have nothing, no transportation, no nothing. All I know is where I'm at. Isn't it funny to all you know is where you at? But your mind has got you locked in where you can go many places if I'll just unlock and be with God. If I'll just go in and ask God and talk to him, then I will understand that God can open doors that man have shut. And God can shut doors that man have opened. This is God we're talking about. So Nehemiah had the understanding that he had to go to God. How do I go to God with this? There is nothing I can do. Very true, there's